Like Donnie and Marie Osmond. For decades, they embodied harmony on stage, smiling through countless performances and interviews, while their polished image suggested an unbreakable bond. But in recent years, whispers have circulated that things between the famous siblings may not be as picture-perfect as fans once believed. Now, Marie Osmond finally breaks her silence about her relationship with Donnie. These revelations will definitely surprise you. And it's crazy. Like I said in the show, the video went viral the first day. For decades, fans believed Marie and Donny Osmond shared an unbreakable bond both on and off the stage. But now at 65, Marie is finally breaking her silence, revealing the shocking reason she cut ties with her brother. It's not just family drama. It's a story of secrets, heartbreak, and a truth she could no longer hide. What happened behind the scenes of their seemingly perfect partnership will leave you stunned. When Donnie and Marie Osmond first stepped into the spotlight together, it felt like magic. Audiences couldn't get enough of their chemistry. They weren't just two siblings performing on stage. They seemed like best friends who shared the same rhythm, the same spark. In the mid-1970s, when their variety show Donnie and Marie aired, millions of families tuned in every week. The mix of comedy sketches, upbeat songs, and their playful banter created something fresh and wholesome that people instantly connected to. Viewers didn't just watch a show. They felt like they were invited into the Osmond family living room. Donnie had already been known as a teen idol, but pairing with Marie gave him a new dimension. He wasn't just the heartthrob. He was now part of a dynamic duo that charmed both kids and parents. Marie, on the other hand, had already proven herself with her solo hit Paper Roses. But on the show, she revealed even more of her personality, her humor, her warmth, her ability to hold her own next to her famous brothers. The two of them together created a balance that was rare in show business. Donnie would playfully tease, Marie would fire right back, and the audience loved every second. The catchphrase, "A little bit country, a little bit rock and roll," became their anthem and captured exactly why they worked so well. Donnie was polished and smooth, the classic pop star with boy-next-door charm. Marie brought in her country roots and a grounded sweetness that made her relatable. They weren't just performers. They represented something wholesome during a time when the culture was shifted. For parents, they were safe and clean-cut. For teenagers, they were cool enough to admire, but still approachable. That balance turned them into icons of the era. But their success didn't come without pressure. Every smile, every song, every interview had to maintain the illusion of perfection. They were young. Donnie barely out of his teens and Marie still a teenager herself. Yet they were carrying the weight of a national brand built on family values and squeaky clean images. For a while, it worked seamlessly. They embodied harmony, not just in their songs, but in the way the public imagined their relationship. Fans believed they were inseparable, a brother-sister team who would always be side by side. And in those golden years of television, it really did look that way. Marie Osmond always seemed to shine under the lights. With her big smile, smooth voice, and bubbly charm, she became America's sweetheart almost overnight. On stage and on TV, she looked like she had everything: talent, beauty, and a close-knit family by her side. But behind the spotlight, her story was far more complicated. What the public saw was only a small piece of who Marie really was. Because while she was performing, laughing, and trying to live up to her family's image, she was also carrying struggles that few knew about. Her battles began early. At just a teenager, while co-hosting the Donnie and Marie show, Marie faced harsh words that cut deep. A producer once told her that she looked fat and was an embarrassment to her family. At an age when most girls are still figuring out who they are, Marie was forced to measure her worth by her appearance in front of millions of viewers. That single comment might have sounded careless to some, but to her it planted a seed of insecurity that would grow into years of self-doubt. She became obsessed with her body, feeling pressure to stay thin at all costs. Diets turned extreme. Her weight dropped dangerously, and soon she developed body dysmorphia. From the outside, she looked glamorous. Inside, she was fighting herself every day. What made it worse was the expectation that she always had to be perfect. Being the only girl in the Osmond family came with its own kind of spotlight. She wasn't just a performer. She was also seen as a role model, someone who had to reflect the wholesome image of the entire Osmond name. While her brothers were celebrated for their harmonies and stage presence, Marie felt like she carried a double load. She had to be talented and beautiful, strong, but never too outspoken, sweet, but not too independent. It was a balancing act that left her exhausted. As the years went on, the cracks behind the curtain grew deeper. Marie later revealed something that explained so much of her pain. As a child, she had been sexually abused. It was a secret she carried for years, locked away because she didn't know how to speak about it, and because the world around her demanded silence. When she finally opened up about it, she admitted how the trauma followed her into adulthood. It shaped how she saw herself, how she trusted others, and even made her question her own identity at times. For a long time, she blamed herself, wondering if she had done something wrong. But abuse leaves scars that are not the victim's fault. And for Marie, those scars ran deep. While the public praised her for her bubbly personality and stage presence, privately, she wrestled with shame and confusion. She threw herself into work, into smiling, into giving the world what it expected of her. But the little girl inside her was still hurting. Her story resonated with so many later on because it showed that even those who seem the strongest, even those who look perfect on TV, can be hiding unimaginable pain. Then came one of the greatest tragedies of her life, losing her son Michael in 2010. He was just 18 when he died by suicide. Marie had already lived through so many private battles, but this loss broke her in a way she had never experienced before. She had spoken before about his struggles with depression and the challenges he faced, but nothing could prepare her for that call, for that moment. To lose a child is something no parent ever fully recovers from. And for Marie, it was a wound that would never completely heal. She talked openly later about how she questioned everything. If she had done enough, if she could have changed something, if she had missed a sign, the guilt was unbearable, even though deep down she knew she had given him all the love she could. That loss changed her. It stripped away any illusion that her life was as perfect as the world believed. It reminded her painfully that fame and money couldn't shield her from heartbreak. It was also one of the moments when fans saw just how strong she really was. Instead of hiding, Marie shared her grief. She spoke about mental health, about the importance of compassion, and about holding on to hope even in the darkest time. Her pain became a bridge for others, showing them that they were not alone in their own losses. Her struggles didn't end there. Marriage and divorce added another layer of heartache. She married and divorced more than once, with her longest marriage to Brian Blossel lasting over 2 decades. While they built a family together, the marriage was far from easy. Eventually it ended, leaving Marie to pick up the pieces once again. She admitted how hard it was to walk away. How painful it was to face the failure of something she had tried so hard to keep together. But just like in other parts of her life, she found resilience even when it meant starting over in her 50s. Through all of this, Marie never completely lost her faith or her determination. She admitted her insecurities, her struggles with depression, and even moments when she felt like giving up. Yet, she kept moving forward. She leaned on her family, her children, her causes like the Children's Miracle Network, and her ability to connect with people through honesty. What makes Marie's story so powerful is not that she lived a perfect life, but that she didn't. She fell, she broke, she cried, and she questioned herself countless times, but she also chose to be real. She chose to share her hidden battles instead of hiding behind the glitter of show business. And in doing so, she gave countless others permission to speak their own truths. Behind the spotlight, Marie Osmond's life was filled with pain most people never saw. But it was also filled with strength, resilience, and the determination to rise again, no matter how many times she was knocked down. That more than the songs or the shows is what makes her story unforgettable. Donny Osmond had grown up in the spotlight, and for years, his face was everywhere. He was the heartthrob of the Osmond family, the boy with the charming smile and perfect hair who made teenage girls scream when he walked onto a stage. Paired with his sister Marie, the two of them were unstoppable. The Donnie and Marie show had turned them into icons, symbols of family-friendly entertainment, the kind of wholesome pair parents trusted their kids to watch. But once the cameras stopped rolling and the glitter faded, Donnie realized that being trapped inside the image of a squeaky clean teen idol was its own kind of prison. As the 1980s began, Donnie was no longer the boy next door. He was a grown man with a family of his own, and he desperately wanted to be taken seriously as an artist. But the world wasn't ready to let go of the picture it had of him. Everywhere he went, people still treated him like the teenage crush they remembered. Record executives wanted him to sing bubblegum pop, not deeper, more mature music. Casting directors saw his face and thought only of that shiny smile from the 70s. Donnie found himself suffocating under an image that no longer fit. And the cracks in his career and even in the famous duo with Marie began to show. The first step in his reinvention was breaking free musically. Donnie pushed for a comeback as a solo artist. Determined to prove that he had more to offer than catchy teen anthems, he released new music that was more grown-up, songs that reflected the man he had become. For a while, it seemed like the gamble wasn't paying off. His albums didn't sell as well as expected, and critics were quick to dismiss him as someone desperately clinging to fame. The teen idol tag was hard to shake, and the industry was brutal in its refusal to let him grow. But Donnie wasn't ready to give up. He made one of the boldest moves of his career by stepping onto the theater stage. Landing the role of Joseph in Joseph and the amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat gave him the chance to rebuild his image from the ground up. Theater audiences didn't come with the same expectations as the screaming teen fans of the 70s. They came to see a performance, and Donnie delivered. Night after night, he poured himself into the role, showing the world that he wasn't just a former pop star, but a serious performer. The role didn't just revive his career, it redefined him. For the first time in years, he felt like he had broken free of the box he had been trapped in. But while Donnie was reinventing himself, the partnership with Marie wasn't the same. The two of them still performed together at times, but the cracks in their duo were undeniable. Marie wanted her own identity, her own career, her own chance to step out from being just Donnie's sister. Donnie, on the other hand, was struggling with his own battles against the past. Their paths, once so tightly connected, began to diverge. On stage, they smiled, joked, and sang like the perfect team. But behind the scenes, both of them were restless. Reality was that fame had boxed them both in. Audiences loved Donnie and Marie together, but the pressure to keep recreating that same magic of the 70s became stifling. When they reunited for projects like their talk show in the 1990s and later their Las Vegas residency, the same tensions resurfaced. Donnie sometimes felt weighed down by the nostalgia, like he was being dragged back into the teen idol world he had worked so hard to escape. Marie, meanwhile, felt the pressure of being tied to her brother when she wanted to be seen as her own person. During this time, Donnie also faced personal battles that tested him more than any career setback. His struggles with anxiety and panic attacks made performing even harder. Imagine being on stage expected to smile and charm an audience while inside you're fighting waves of fear. That was Donnie's reality during certain tours and shows. He later admitted that it took everything in him to keep going some nights, to hide the cracks in his carefully polished exterior, but he kept pushing because he knew that stepping back from the stage would mean surrendering the very thing he had spent his life building. Even as he reinvented himself, Donnie couldn't escape controversy entirely. His comments on sensitive social issues drew criticism, and his squeaky clean image was sometimes used against him. Some in the industry told him he would never be taken seriously unless he staged a scandal, something shocking enough to shatter the perfect boy image once and for all. Donnie refused. He wasn't willing to compromise his values just to manipulate public perception. It made his path harder, but it also made it more authentic. The Las Vegas residency with Marie in the 2000s brought both triumph and tension. On stage, they found magic again, performing for packed audiences night after night, reminding fans of why they had fallen in love with the duo decades earlier. But offstage, the grind was exhausting. Performing 6 nights a week took its toll, and the differences between Donnie and Marie grew sharper. Donnie loved the control and consistency of the show, while Marie longed for more freedom. By the time the residency ended in 2019, both of them admitted that it was the right time to close that chapter. Donnie even said publicly that while he missed performing with Marie, the era of Donnie and Marie was over. What stands out most about Donnie's reinvention is not that he escaped his past completely. Because in truth, he never really did, but that he learned to live with it while carving out a new space for himself. He couldn't erase being a teen idol, and he couldn't erase the years of being tied to Marie in the public eye. But he could prove through resilience and sheer determination that he was more than that. The cracks in the duo with Marie didn't mean failure. They meant growth, change, and the reality that even the closest partnerships evolved. For Donnie, reinvention was never about walking away from who he had been. It was about refusing to let the world decide who he was allowed to become. And while the world still remembers him as the boy with the perfect smile, those who look closer know that his story is about much more than that. It's about endurance, struggle, and the courage to keep stepping back into the spotlight even when it would have been easier to walk away. For decades, the world saw Donnie and Marie Osmond as inseparable. They were the brother-sister duo who sang, danced, and joked their way into America's living rooms. Their variety show in the 70s was pure comfort television, and their Las Vegas residency decades later seemed like proof that some partnerships could stand the test of time. But behind the curtain, the pressures of fame, the weight of family expectations, and their own personal struggles began to wear away at the bond. When their Las Vegas residency began in 2008, Marie was hopeful. She thought it would be a fun return, a celebration of everything they had built. At first, it was exactly that. Audiences flocked to see them, old fans reliving their memories, new fans discovering their music for the first time. The energy in the room was electric, and for a while, Marie enjoyed the rhythm of being back on stage with her brother. But the reality of performing 6 nights a week set in. It was exhausting. She was in her 50s dealing with her own personal issues, health struggles, family changes, grief over the loss of her son, and the grind of the residency felt relentless. As the years went on, Marie realized that the residency wasn't just entertainment. It was a cage. She felt trapped in a cycle of nostalgia, playing the same songs, making the same jokes, wearing the same glittery costumes. The public adored it, but for Marie, it began to feel like she was stuck in the past, unable to move forward. She loved Donnie, but their creative differences only made things harder. Johnny thrived in the structure, the routine, the consistency of the show. Marie, on the other hand, longed for more freedom, for the chance to reinvent herself and show the world who she was beyond the duo. The decision to end the residency in 2019 was mutual. But for Marie, it was more than just a business move. It was symbolic. She knew that if she didn't step away now, she might never reclaim her own identity. The Donnie and Marie brand had been both a blessing and a curse. It gave her fame, wealth, and a platform. But it also took away her individuality. By the time the curtain closed for the final time at the Flamingo Hotel, she felt both relief and sadness. The end of the show meant the end of the comfort zone she had lived in for so long, but it also meant she could finally breathe. Marie spoke candidly about the choice in interviews afterward. She admitted it was one of the hardest decisions of her life because walking away felt like letting go of a part of herself. For so long, Donnie had been her partner on stage and their chemistry was undeniable. Fans saw them as the perfect pair, the brother and sister who could do no wrong. But Marie wanted more than to be half of a duo. She wanted to be Marie Osmond, a woman with her own voice, her own career, and her own legacy. Cutting ties wasn't about anger or bitterness. It was about survival. The public, of course, was shocked. Many couldn't imagine the Osmond siblings not performing together. Rumors swirled about family feuds, about fights behind the scenes, about jealousy and resentment. But Marie was clear. This wasn't about conflict. It was about growth. She had spent decades smiling for the cameras even when her life was falling apart. She had endured body shaming, battled depression, grieved unimaginable loss, and carried the weight of expectations no one else could understand. Now in her 60s, she wanted peace. She wanted to choose her own projects, focus on her family, and live without being tied to an image that belonged to another time. The end of an era wasn't just a headline. It was a reality for Marie and for the millions of fans who had grown up watching her and Donnie. For some, it felt like losing a piece of their childhood, but for Marie, it was finally stepping into her own life, one where she didn't have to smile on cue or share the stage to be seen. She still loved her brother, still valued the years they spent performing together, but she knew that her future couldn't be chained to the past. Looking back, the story of Donnie and Marie is one of success, pressure, and resilience. They gave the world unforgettable performances and countless memories. But they also carried the heavy burden of being symbols of perfection. Marie's decision to cut ties was a reminder that even icons have to choose themselves sometimes. That sometimes the bravest thing a person can do is walk away from what everyone else expects and step into the unknown. For Marie, it wasn't the end of her story. It was just the beginning of a new,